Who is safe? No one indeed is safe or free from this pandemic. It all started as if it was a joke and as if it was their problem, something that looked thousands of miles away from us. That is coronavirus, known as COVID-19, a pandemic of our time which knows no boundaries. It all started in Wuhan in central China, an enormous and beautiful city. In December 2019, we began hearing about it, though it sounded as though it was very far from us. In less than 3 months, it started ravaging the entire globe like a wild bushfire and causing havoc to many nations. This production aimed at highlighting the social and psychological impact of COVID-19 on religious communities. Father Symphony Mfumosenji explains to us how his community was affected with this pandemic.
First of all, our community, we have a program of life whereby we follow a certain timetable, everything is set. The program of studies, the program of prayer, the program of manual work, sport and many other community activities are included inside there. But when Corona came and the regulations were put down by the government and the World Health Organization, we had to put aside our community plan of life and to start adapting ourselves by adopting this new way. So the dining room, we made some changes. Few people remain eating in the dining room, at least 3 by table, and then others they were using other community facilities or rooms as the dining room, so we could not come together.
The Little Sisters of St. Francis were also affected with this pandemic, and this is what Sister Esther Muturi had to say.
Coronavirus has affected us as a community and as a congregation because we know socially we normally have community prayers where we come together, we gather together as a community, as a group of sisters. But due to the effects of coronavirus, it is very hard for us to be together. We have to keep the social distancing, which is not normal for us because especially most of us are Africans, and we know Africans are naturally social. They want to be together, they want to share life together. But apparently coronavirus has come to bring that, and this has affected us socially. It is something that is an experience of its kind. We have never gone through this. We have never seen the sisters not praying together. We had to reschedule our timetable. We had to make sure that the sisters, if it is prayers, people are doing personal prayers, or we are going to the chapel at intervals to make sure that we keep the social distance. Otherwise, this is not something that we are used to, but we have to for the sake of our health.
Christopher Oyo, who is still under formation, explains how all the activities in their community were shut down.
We used to have at least once in a month social gathering coming together. To interact and share our lives, share our experiences together, have a drink together, have a bite together as a community as we celebrate life. This has also been affected greatly since it's not easy to come together socially. Already there's a social distance, so that means that social connection has been broken. So this has actually affected us in a great way, that we are so much limited within our community and there's no much movement outside the community. So there's no much new ideas coming in from outside. There's no much interaction with the outside world, and this we feel has actually made us feel like we are cocooned, we are closed up, and it's quite a challenge for us.
Religious communities were seriously affected, and that's what Clement had to say.
The religious communities were seriously affected because our life is a social life, eating together. Playing together. Having mass together. So we had to stop all these issues. So from the 16th of March, this is when now our life was seriously affected. So we had to go into quarantine at Alamano House. Immediately our brother tested positive. So the house was seriously affected, and also specifically the students and also the priest, the 34 of us in the house. So we could not eat together, we could not play sports together, we could not have mass because of that fear. People were scared, there was a lot of stress. Nobody knew that who is positive or who is not positive. So there was some instances that even if I want to go and serve meals during our common meals, you find if I see my brother serve, I would even sometimes take a serviette to touch that spoon, because I was fearing, you find, because the directive was that the virus was being passed through the flames.
The Society of Divine Word has been sending out students who are in their formation houses for a holiday experience, but this time they were all locked in their community. Father Hugo Carlis explains.
The impact is quite big in the sense that socially we are mandated to be and remain only in the house as a community. And then we are not able to continue ahead with our programs as usual, especially during these long holidays. All of us, we used to go for different experiences across our communities in the country and also other countries here in Africa. So due to the COVID-19, nobody can move out of the house. In that aspect, all our plans that we were having at extra of the community cannot continue. And I will say also other plans that we were having at intra of the community, especially where we were inviting people to come in and to accompany us during the long holidays, especially with different programs for formation. Also, it's not possible to be done due to the same reason.
In the community of Sisters of the Immaculate Heart of Mary, there was much fear, especially if one of them goes out. Sister Maria explains how they were living in fear.
When COVID-19 started, everybody was a suspect. But the fourth thing that struck me was the fact that how could people you have been living with today, all of a sudden, they are suspects of diseases. You don't even see the virus. Some of us don't even know how it looks like. And so socially, there was that fear, especially because some have gone out and come back. We were afraid, but not so deeply as to be afraid of one another. But there was that intention of being careful, not shaking of hands, even with the people you are living with in the community. We had sanitizer, we were asked to wash our hands regularly, and all of us cooperated with all these instructions given both by the government and by the church to take care of ourselves.
Religious communities were also affected psychologically, and Father Dr. Selvam, who is a psychologist, tells us how to deal with depression, trauma, and so other psychological issues.
Depression depends on somebody's personality. There are personalities that are given to negative feelings much more. We call this in psychology neuroticism. And what would be the cause of a high level of neuroticism among people? It could be genetics, partly genetics, that they have inherited certain genes that are disposed to negative feelings. And secondly, it could be an outcome of childhood trauma. But in both the cases, people who discover depression early on can learn some management skills, social skills, and skills that can help them to manage the situation. In some cases, especially when people who are having high level of depression are given to self-harm or harming other people, they might need medical treatment. One thing is to help the individuals who has got tested positive for COVID. It could also be the community. I don't see a big reason why somebody should have a stigma around COVID, because we don't need to moralize this. It could be also because this person did something good, that they were reaching out to people, that in ministry, that they were infected by COVID. So there is no need for, first of all, a stigma around COVID-19. On the other hand, if somebody has really been been positive for COVID and now is living after recovery, then they need to be supported by the community to accept whatever has happened in their lives, and maybe also to help them physically recover, because we hear that people who have had COVID-19 not only have psychological issues but also respiratory problems, and they surely need greater support from the community right now, and therefore there is no room for stigma. But if at all there is stigma, this individual has to be supported by the community.
Samuel Mwangi, one of the Consolata seminarians, tested positive, and this is what he went through.
I tested positive. Loneliness, especially if you are someone who is very outgoing, very social, it can be very difficult. And even you can still have another perspective. The way I was before I went to that isolation is not the way I am today. That time I could feel free talking, jumping around with people, playing, but because of getting used to being alone in a room, now I find myself it is better I just be alone in my room. Maybe I watch a movie, I read, because this is something which I got used to. And if this one cannot be taken with a quite required measure, people can suffer depression because of this. After we left, I was talking with another lady, and she was telling me the same thing. For her, she don't want even to be so much around people, her family. She just want to remain alone. Sometimes if it is not thought wise, maybe this is something which one is suffering psychologically. You were affected. You could talk to people, but you could not be able to talk to them one-on-one. It is not easy as a person, because a human being is a social being. Personally, I can give a testimony that being in the isolation facility is not the best place you can be, especially if you are someone who is not strong. It is not the best place you can be, and that's why you see even many people can suffer psychological illnesses if they are not given counseling. Actually, I would advocate for counseling after people leave the quarantine or isolation facilities, because these are people who have undergone trauma. These are people who have undergone trauma physically, because of not moving much. Even your body becomes weak. You cannot be able even to walk well after leaving, because you're always in the bed. No chair like this one. You are always in the bed for all that long. You are alone. It is not easy. It is not easy. So my recommendation is, if it is possible, after one has been confirmed positive, it is good to journey with that person, to give encouragement, to give hope. And also after he leaves the hospital, to look for a counselor, to talk to this person, so that he can be able to get back to the life that he was used to.
Father Geoffrey, a psychological counselor, explained some of the effects of COVID-19 on the individual and how to deal with them.
The impact of this pandemic is great and very devastating on the individual person, on the members of the family, and in the society at large. Some of the effects of COVID-19 in the individual are depression.
That time I could feel free talking, jumping around with people, playing, but because of getting used to being alone in a room, and if this one cannot be taken with a quite required measure, people can suffer depression because of this.
Most of the victims of COVID-19 are depressed patients, people who sometimes lose the hope of living because of other effects which come along with COVID-19. Among these are the isolation effects and the effect of being alone for a long time.
It is not easy as a person, because a human being is a social being.
And when one is put in an isolation room for 21 days or 14 days, that causes them a lot of suffering. So one of the impact of COVID-19 is this psychological torture for the person who has to undergo this kind of depression and even stigmatization. That means one is viewed as a victim, or is viewed as a candidate for death, or is viewed as a person who is bringing malediction or bad omen into society. So the first suffering, which is psychological for because of this COVID-19, is an individual person. On the other side, there is suffering in the family of these people. That means the people close to these victims are also very much monitored by the government, and it puts on them a lot of pressure to maintain the hygiene, to maintain good contact with the people, and the family is the support system for the individuals. Therefore, you find that when the family is in a big mess, it becomes very difficult to support the victims of the COVID-19. Thirdly, we also have psychological effects on the community at large. You have seen how some of the leaders do not give exact figures of the situation on the ground so as not to appear failures. And that is another suffering for the community. That means that the suffering of these COVID-19 patients goes from the individual person, that is depression, stigma, isolation, and to the family also, whereby the warmth of the African family is also affected. You find that in these families, the distancing, the social distance which has been recommended by the government, becomes a challenge because we are very warm people. We fear visitors. We don't like to go to their homes. We're just there in the house. This also is another suffering for the people who have to live through this pandemic of COVID-19.
COVID-19 has also some positive impact on some communities. Sister Maria explains how her community has improved in some aspects.
The experience of COVID-19 has actually blessed our community, and staying in the community, not going out, gave us ample time to pray together. For the first time, you come for adoration in the chapel and 7 of us are there. Morning prayers, evening prayers, we were all there, which was not there when the normal activities were on because people go to school and they come back in the evening. Sometimes we are 3, sometimes we were 4, sometimes we were 2 in the chapel. But during this time, everybody was present in the chapel.
For seminarian Jean Sadiki, he had discovered and developed the talent of composing and playing liturgical songs.
Corona has helped me too much to improve on my skills and to be myself, to be the author of something which is really very nice, and I've gotten that time to sit and to meditate and because to compose a song you have to sit to get that time, which before I couldn't get that time because I could have been busy with Tangaza school, and if I'm at home in the parish, I'm busy with the pastoral, so I couldn't get that time to sit and to make something consistent for prayer, which can be sung on the mass. So it is really very important for me, and I appreciate it too much that I got that time with this corona. I got that time to sit and to make something which is very nice and which is loved. So for me it is really something positive that I've gotten so many skills in playing, in singing, and even in composing the song like this one. It is really very nice, and when I posted the congregation, it is really loved. So for me, I think it is positive that I've done something which is loved by people, and it motivates me to do again more and more. So Corona has helped me too much to improve on my skills and to be myself, to be the author of something which is really very nice, and I've gotten that time to sit and to meditate and because to compose a song you have to sit to get that time.
COVID-19 has affected the entire globe in different ways. Many people have lost their lives, the business and economy have gone down, empty streets because most of people are at home, and if you go out you have to use your face mask. This pandemic has affected us in all aspects of life.